So let's go to question number one. What is the best cruise line?
The best cruise line. Can I say it depends?
I think you're absolutely
Yeah,
right. I absolutely agree with you.
yeah. The best cruise line is all dependent on if you're talking about for you and your family. Uh, it's a totally different experience than an empty nester like myself with the best cruise line, because your needs are different. You know,
Yeah.
you guys are younger, and you've got Alex, and sometimes you have your dad go along, and so you have a multi-generational experience there. When you have groups, it's a totally different dynamic. And the cruise lines, other than the fact that they all sail in water, they are very, very different experiences. So they have their own crew, their kind of their swim lanes, that they do this. So I love Holland America. It's a mid-sized ship with a little bit of elegance, a very traditional cruise experience. There's no climbing walls, no flow riders.
Well, what do you
No,
do? That's all the fun stuff.
yeah, you guys, it would be like totally boring for a lot of people. You got to pick and choose your people for that, and celebrity is a totally different experience from all of that. We went on Celebrity when we did that Southern Caribbean,
Right,
and
right.
you probably noticed because you guys have been on Princess and uh,
Carnival,
carnivals, and so
Disney.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they're all there's differences there,
Yeah,
and
there
you've
certainly are.
experienced that, and you feel it when you get on the ships,
Yeah,
don't you? I mean, when you board one of the upper premium lines, somebody's handing you a flute of champagne.
that's right.
And then when you board a Carnival cruise line, you've got the reggae music playing, and it's
That's
a very
right.
upscale, lively experience. So it starts the minute you step aboard. You can sense the atmosphere of that particular ship.
And that's a really good point. And to that point, not only is each cruise line a little different, but each cruise themselves and each ship themselves are a little different. There are
Right.
some, and they evolve too, because I know 11 years ago when you and I first started working together, I told you there was this one cruise line that I never wanted to go on. I would never go on a cruise with this particular cruise line
Mhm.
because of my experience having docked next to them when me and my wife and my son were on the Disney cruise. And I said, from what we could hear from across the bay, we would never want to be on that ship. But then we actually went on one of those cruises with that particular cruise line. It's like, this is not what we thought it was going to be like at all. Uh,
Well, what one of the best things I just tell you, to get in touch with a travel advisor and talk through your preferences, and talk through, because look for a travel advisor who has a specialty in cruises. Um, you can ask some questions but you want to find somebody who can explore that. Somebody, when you get a hold of somebody who knows they we're nosy people as travel advisors. We're going to ask a lot of questions about your preferences, and uh, because we know those brands, we know those ships within the various brands. So that's the easiest thing. You can also spend 20 hours or so uh, just scrolling around on the internet. Going to Cruise Critic is a site I like a lot, and say, and you can Google what's the best cruise ship, and you can basically spend 20 or 30 hours, or you can spend
no,
15 minutes. Yeah,
that's
I
no.
mean, you could easily do that and then still get on the wrong ship.
Yeah,
And that actually happened to somebody that I know. My guy Kevin, our marketing director, he actually got himself on a cruise ship, and he and his wife said at 9 o'clock at night, where'd everybody go?
oh
See,
no.
they were the youngest people on the ship, and he hadn't been doing this too long at that point in time, and he made his own reservation, and so he kind of had that experience. And so
Oh, no.
I mean, you can do all kinds of research and still end up, say, and I'm not afraid to name brands. I will name names because um, there's only one cruise line out there that I would not book again, and I'd talk you out of it if you wanted to do that. And
Who's that?
it's Costa.
Oh,
And
really?
I sailed on them, and the ship was gorgeous. But aside from the itinerary was fine, but the entertainment, they were trying to come in and make inroads in the Caribbean, and they tried and they failed mightily. I tell people that occasionally the food rose to the level of mediocre.
Oh, that's
And
disappointing.
when you cruise, let's face it, we all want to eat when we're cruising.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just part
true.
of the
That's true.
experience. Is you always look forward to that experience in the dining room, and it was very disappointing.
Was
So
this before or after the wreck?
this was before they sunk their ship.
Costa Concordia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was I just didn't care for them, and I have changed my mind. There's another brand that I had based on a fellow travel agent who didn't care for the brand, called MSC. You may not even know that one,
Yeah, I know.
Joe.
I've heard of them, but I've never been on them. I
Yeah,
see them in the YouTube videos when they're talking about cruise ships.
and I used to not sell them. If when somebody called and asked about them, I'd just quietly switch them over to Carnival or Norwegian, and suggest that. And then they got me out on one of their ships. And I sailed on the MSC Seaside a couple of years ago and totally changed my opinion. They are one of a beautiful ship, and great itinerary. The entertainment was fabulous. So food was good. I actually I have one book now that I don't think it's going to go because they're starting to extend. It's supposed to go in February, so I think I'm going to end up having to extend that yet again. But that's another brand. And you have to watch, as we were talking about, you have to watch the ships within the brand, because some of them,
Yes, that is definitely the case.
Royal Caribbean has, for example, Majesty of the Seas and Empress of the Seas, which are both very small vessels. But they have the biggest ships sailing. The Oasis class ships are the biggest ships sailing today. So even within the brand, sometimes you have to be aware, because if you book Majesty of the Seas and you're expecting to get one of these huge mega ships, it's going to totally disappoint you. So
Yeah, it really does pay to do your research. And Marty and I, my wife and I, we actually ended up on one of the discounted ships, one of the smaller discounted ships from Carnival. And it was just night and day compared to some of the other ships that we had been on, where and I emailed you as soon as we got back. I said, the service was just, it's like the people were, I hate to say this, and I don't want to make any particular brand sound bad, but there were several times where I felt like I was in the way of the crew, or I was in the way of the people who were supposed to be bringing me food or whatever. And then there was other Carnival cruises that I've been on that were just amazing, and that we couldn't wait to get back on after we're disembarking. We're ready to make our next cruise schedule. So yeah, it really does pay. And it seems like those smaller ships, for some reason, sometimes the smaller ships, um, I don't know if that's like where they take and put their employees who are just getting started,
yeah,
maybe,
all of
or
this plays into it for sure. Those fantasy class ships, actually, they've sent, I think, three of them have now gone during
yeah,
this COVID
yeah, they sold them for scrap.
break. Have gone to the scrapyard. Uh, they've been old. They've done a great job of maintaining them, but there's no wow factor. They're
Yeah,
small compared. Just they're almost, you put them next to one of the big ships, and it's like you can't even believe it. But
yeah.
I tried not to book those ships, and I really did. And because you don't want, like your experience where you come home
Right.
and say, "Oh, that was disappointing."
Yeah.
But they're new ships on Carnival. They're newer ships. Uh, they can hold their own, go toe to toe, and uh, the ones that are coming out, this new Mardi Gras and the sister ship to Panorama that just came out, Horizon. Those ships are big. They're beautiful.
Yeah, they
And
really are.
yeah, they have things to attract luxury travelers these days. So it's a totally different experience.
Honestly, I'm not. I don't need a big, beautiful ship. I know my son, he loves to walk around and explore as much as he can. My wife likes the shows and stuff. I'm really kind of an itinerary guy. I want the nice itineraries. Um, but what I really need is if I ask you for a fork because I don't have a fork with my food, I want to get that fork before my food gets cold. And
And with a
unfortunately,
smile.
and with a smile. That's right, with a smile. Is it possible for motion sickness people to experience a cruise and not be miserable? And this is a question I get quite a lot, and it's one of those where I kind of have to help walk people through some of the steps and things that I do. So what would you say?
I would say, indeed, it is possible. In fact, I am very motion sensitive myself, and I cruise at every opportunity.
Yeah, I think
So,
you and I have ridden in some buses together where we had to
yeah,
ride in the front seat so that we both didn't get seasick.
yep, yeah. And you put me on the water. You put me in the ocean on a on a day when there's some wave action. I can't stay out there too long unless I put a patch on, because those waves it will get me all worked up in no time. But yeah, there's it, and there are degrees of motion sensitivity. There are
But
people
but the
that
patch, let me interrupt you. The
are,
patch though, that's not for cruises, that's for small boats, right? For
that's
you.
for, oh, it's for cruises. I
Oh, you use, okay, I didn't know
Yeah,
you use
the
those.
patch, some people put it on, and I used to wear it all the time. I'd put it on while we were still in port and wear it for the entire cruise. Now I know my tolerance, and if I may put it on, I can just sense when it's getting a little to the level where I need to, and I'll go put it on, and then I'll park it. If, after things settle down, I'll park it and go back and put it on later on. So, uh, but the scopolamine patch, now that's a prescription product. You have to get it through your doctor and talk to him. Sometimes it could be contraindicated for, I don't know, for some condition. But there are all kinds of things.
Does
The
it have
dram.
side effects?
Some people say it makes them drowsy. For me, I have a little bit of a dry mouth. I notice when I take it, which is what it does. It kind of dries up that excess fluid in the inner ear, which and keeps you from getting, uh, having the reaction to the motion.
Right.
But I just keep a bottle of water around, and uh,
Or Coke
or
Zero?
yeah, Coke Zero, or
I
a
know your
hard
vice.
candy, anything to kind of just deal with the dry mouth. Small price to pay for not being sick on board and being able to enjoy my cruise.
That's true.
Uh,
That's true.
but there are all kinds. Location on the ship makes a difference. The larger the ship, the more stable it tends to be. You on these mega ships, you may not, you have to be halfway to a hurricane before you start to notice the motion. So, larger ships, the more centrally located on the ship, the lower down, all of those things help. Uh, Oral medication, the Dramamine kinds of things. Some people swear by those acupuncture wristbands. Some people take ginger. So there are
Yeah,
ways
that's
of,
me. I do
yeah,
the ginger.
uh, different things. People do different things, and a lot depends on the degree of sensitivity you have, and just what works for you.
So the ginger is what works for me, and it's one of those things where a friend told me about it because I have I was getting seasick playing video games, and we were playing all these different video games together, and then things started going to the 3D video games, and I started trying to realizing, really having trouble with these 3D games for some reason, even with a good monitor and fast computer. And so a friend of mine told me about these I'm sorry, about these ginger pills. And I started taking them, and I would take 2 of them, before a cruise. Um, I'm sorry, before a game, and they would just work. And I don't know if it's one of those things where it's all in my head or if it's actually doing something for my stomach, but regardless, it works. So I'm just going to go with it, even if
Yeah.
it is in my head.
I think it really does work, and it's kind of one of those tried and true remedies, and it doesn't work for everyone. Uh,
Yeah.
but if it works for you, that's one of the, without going to prescription products,
Right.
or
Right.
taking the Dramamine, um,
Yeah, and
but
there's no side effects, and actually the pills that I get them from GNC, and when I'm on a cruise, I'll take 2 in the morning, and then I take 2 before dinner. There's no side effects, and it just kind of keeps everything happy, keeps me happy for the trip.
cool.
Yeah. So I suggest anyway, and they're like $9, I think, $9 for a big bottle, and it'll last you for the entire trip. Where is the best stateroom location to book for your cruise?
Okay, this kind of it depends is another answer. I mean, people. You have some people who really they an interior stateroom is fine with them. They're more interested in getting the best possible deal, and so they're happy. They like it being in a dark room at night, so they're good with an interior room. Uh,
Or
People,
they know they only spend when they're sleeping or showering in the room, and the rest of the time they're going to spend, going to the shows or that sort of stuff.
yeah. Um, Personally, I love my balcony staterooms, and myself, I tend to like a room that's like on deck 8, kind of somewhere in the middle and midship, because I'm halfway then to wherever I'm going on the ship, whether it's aft to go to dinner or forward to go to a show. So and if I go up, I've only got to go up four decks to go to the buffet. So I kind of tend to like that. Uh, Rooms that tend to be at a premium that the cruise ships consider the best locations tend to be midship, higher up. People like that higher up. Personally, I'm not that keen on that. I'd rather on my balcony be a little closer to the water where I could see what's
Yes,
going on down there. So I
exactly.
like being on deck 7 or 8, and midship is my favorite place to be. There are some great staterooms all the way forward on some of the ships that have the great, incredible views of what's ahead of you, and the aft-facing staterooms that have the balconies that look back as where you've been. I've sailed in all of them, and I don't have a real. I've never been in a stateroom that I thought was unacceptable or marginal. Some people are very, very picky about where they want to be on a ship, and I get it, and we take care of it and put them where they want to be. But personally, I try to avoid being right above or below public areas that are
Yes.
going to generate noise.
Yeah.
There are places that you want to avoid. Where you might have the disco going at midnight, and you like to turn in about 10:30, and so you got the
Exactly.
boom boom going. So things like that you want to avoid, being right under uh, the Lido deck, where in the pool area where they might be dragging chairs around and
Right.
cleaning all hours of the night, and you hear this grrr. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, people say, forward, you tend to feel a little more of the motion, they say, as far as because you're cutting through the water up there, and aft, some people say they feel the more vibration from the engines. Personally, I have never found a whole lot of difference, particularly on the larger ships. whether I'm forward, whether I'm aft, it all seems, minuscule kind of things. You have to kind of be nitpicking to notice those things, as far as I'm concerned. Critic?
This is one of those places where Cruise Critic can really help, because there's some ships that have amazing, excellent insulation in between each of the floors, and then there's some that are some, especially some of the older ships that even if after a retrofit, you still may hear a little bit of that disco floor above you. And people, you can actually get where people have left, comments and, say, yeah, this is an issue. Noise is an issue if you're on this level on this side of the ship. So yeah, I
And
totally
there's
agree.
another place, Deck Plan Genius is another good site to go on there, and one called iCruise.com. All of those tend to have a lot of information. A lot of times you could just Google the name of the ship and stateroom number, and you
Oh,
can find, sometimes you
like
can
even
find it.
pictures.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
all of those things, just little tricks that you can do.
Yeah.
And there again, book through find yourself a good travel advisor who will help walk you through that, and find out what's going to be the best stateroom for you and your
Yeah.
preferences.
For me personally, I prefer not to have an interior room. We've had interior rooms before. They're great for the budget. Especially if you're going on a cruise where you know that you're not going to be in the stateroom a lot. You're just there going to be, you're just going to be there to sleep and to get dressed or whatever. But my thing is, I like to wake up to that sunlight, because I can sleep to 10 or 11 a.m. and completely blow my vacation day, or one of my 7 vacation days, my very limited time that I have for vacation, if I don't have any light to wake up to, and even if you have an alarm, you're going to have an alarm that goes off and it's going to be completely dark. So
Hmm.
I don't necessarily mind the portal. What are they called? The ocean.
Porthole, yeah,
Yeah.
the ocean view room.
Ocean view. Thank you.
Yeah,
The ocean view side. I'm more either balcony like you are, or ocean view if I'm going on a
yeah.
budget.
There's just something, uh, and really, when you price it out, when you're looking at the difference between the price on an ocean view and a balcony, it's usually not that significant.
It's not much. Yeah.
And if there's just something, if you're sailing the Caribbean, for example, and you're uh sailing into the one of these colorful Caribbean ports early in the morning, I mean, it's really cool to be able, you may still be in your jammies, but you could step out on your private balcony, and with your cup of coffee,
Right.
have your
Exactly.
coffee in Danish delivered in the morning,
Yeah.
and go out there and have coffee while you sail into this beautiful port.
Alaska is another one.
Oh yeah.
Alaska is another one to have a balcony.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you do not. Now, you may not want to hang out there for long periods of time because it can get pretty chilly. But
Yeah.
they bring these naturalists on board in Alaska, and so they're announcing, you're still in your room, you haven't yet dressed, and all of a sudden they're telling you there's a pod of whales off on the starboard side. Well, that your stateroom's on the starboard side, but if you're in an interior room, doesn't matter which side
Yeah.
they're on, because you're not going to see them.
Well, yeah, you're running upstairs or you're trying to hit the elevator so that you can get to one of the,
Yeah, where you can see something.
where you can
So
see
if you go
something.
to Alaska, budget for the ocean, the not the ocean view, because you need the balcony.
The
Just
balcony.
Yeah,
Right.
same
Right.
way with the Mediterranean. You get the view.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. All right. You ready for the next question?
I'm ready.
All right. Next question is it a good idea to hold off booking a cruise until close to the sail date in order to snag a last minute deal?
Wrong.
Really?
This is old information, and it's still, people think that it holds true today, but 6, 7, 8 years ago, this frequently happened. You know, the cruise ships would have these empty rooms, a significant inventory of unsold space, and they would hold off, you know, and then all of a sudden there'd be a last minute special trying to fill the space. And uh, then, but it's been
Then
years.
the internet.
Yeah, and people now, your best time to book is early. Usually there's just enough an exception to make, you know, to give people a glimmer of hope, but it's so rare because the ships for years have been sailing pretty much full. And
Yeah.
if you're trying to book a room last minute, um, you know, if you book early, first of all, you're going to get those launch fares, which typically are going to be the lowest, particularly if you book during a nice promotion. And you're going to get the best space because you have the most inventory available. You're going to get that room with the best location. And
Sometimes they'll throw stuff in too. Like they'll throw in like extra free meals at the premium player. They'll throw in a beverage, or they'll throw in internet. So I
yeah,
mean, we've gotten the free
sometimes
internet.
yeah, promotions, there's always a promotion going on. But if you're holding out to book until later, now this is going to be, you know, here we're dealing with COVID, so that's a whole different thing because the ships are going to be sailing at reduced capacity when they do resume. So space is going to be more at a premium. People are out there who are so anxious to cruise. If you,
That's
they
me.
had Royal Caribbean's doing these test cruises, is planning to do these test
We
cruises.
signed up for one.
Yeah, well, I signed up too. They got over 100,000 people
Can you believe
in a
that?
week
Yeah.
who are, you know, even knowing that their experience is likely to be, you know, it could be, they could be, you know, identified as somebody who's going to have to go to an isolation suite or something, you know, because,
Oh,
you know,
wait. So people who are volunteering, they can actually be randomly selected to do stuff that
yeah,
they.
I assume so. Now we haven't got this information, but I assume people are going to be assigned roles. They're going to be wanting to test their protocols. So
Interesting.
I would assume, and nobody has told us this, but I'm kind of thinking that we're going to see people who volunteer for a free cruise. I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Yeah.
But they're going to be testing their protocols. So I assume that there's
Yeah.
going to be people that are going to be assigned to have to enter quarantine for a period of some period of time to test out the effectiveness and you know, the logistics that they need to work out, identify any areas that they need to refine. So
Right.
I think and nobody's going to know going in probably what's, you know,
Who's
what
doing
they're,
what?
yeah, you're going to
Yeah.
but I don't know how they're going to roll this out and what it's going to play out. But it's going to be interesting. But the last minute deals, those they've gone the way of the dinosaur. And you're best off if you know you want to book a cruise, book early to get the best deals. Ask, you know, try to get it. A lot of times that they're going to do promotions, and you'll have an opportunity if pricing goes down before you make final payment and things. Sometimes, you know, you can rebook it at a, if there is a lower fare that comes out. And I've done that for clients on occasion, so we can track those things. Um, but book early, book often.
That makes sense. It's, can I still get a sweet deal by just showing up at the terminal and hoping that somebody no shows?
Don't even go there. That does not happen. It's usually about a 3-day cutoff. I think 72, 48 hours, something like that. A lot of that comes in on the Coast Guard and government goes over their manifest of passengers and things
Right.
like that. So you're not going to just show up at the pier and get on board a ship. Just I'm just kind of hanging around today. Is there any open space that I can
Yeah.
snag?
That didn't that have a lot to do with like the stuff after 9/11 with, you know,
Yeah, that things have ever since 9/11, things, and it's true at the airports, the cruise ships, they passenger safety, crew safety are always the highest priority, and they
Yeah.
want to know who's on board that ship, and do a, whatever it is they do. They don't publicize their necessarily their security procedures, but
Right.
they know that, and you have to check in ahead of time. As you know, you do the online check-in and provide them with your identification and scan your passports and things like that. So
Right.
they have to know who's going there, and the government is given a manifest list of the passengers, so they know uh, who is on that list. They have lists of people out there that they're trying to maybe have a conversation with, so
Or they don't want them
they don't
traveling in or out.
they're on the no-fly list, and they don't necessarily want them to get out of the country on a cruise ship and take up residency in Grand Cayman.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I never even thought about that. Good
Yeah.
point. What destinations offer the best deals for an all-inclusive resort vacation? And I think most people know what an all-inclusive resort vacation is, but just if you could start by maybe discussing what it is and then what the best options are.
Okay. Typically, an all-inclusive resort is exactly what it says it is. It includes everything. It will have your meals. It will have your all of your beverages, as much alcohol as you care to consume. For some people, that's quite a bit. Uh, it's entertainment for the most part. Now you might pay extra for motorized water sports, for things like scuba diving, um, excursions off outside of the resort, horseback riding, some things like that. But for the most part, most activities, if you want to snorkel, that's covered, and volleyball, and uh, they'll have, a lot of them have discos, and some have casinos. It all depends on what's their casinos. It's not included your gambling. You have to pay for that. But some of them have free drinks in the casinos, others don't. But for the most part, it covers everything. You know what you're paying. Typically, our packages will include your round trip air and your transfers between the airport and the resort when you land, and your stay at the resort. So it's basically a very seamless, fun, safe, and very value packed vacation for the most part. Best deals, pretty much always in this order: your Mexico, Cancun area, Riviera Maya, that area, always in the number one spot as far as value goes. Beautiful resorts, great beaches. They have everything from family friendly 3-star resorts up to 5-star luxury, with every luxury you can think of. Um, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, usually comes in second place. And also, one of the things to consider when you're doing these is how easy is it to get to these places. If you're going to
Yeah, that's really important.
4
Yeah.
or 5 night vacation, you're not going to want to spend the entire first day
Driving.
driving,
Yeah.
or taking, having to change planes twice, and leave home
Yeah.
at 7 in the morning, and not get to the resort until 6 o'clock that evening. We try to avoid that. We want to get, so these are easy to get to from most parts of the country, where you've got a choice of flights, and they're easy, lots of nonstops. And the third one is Jamaica. Those are the west, and they're all in the Western Caribbean. All have beautiful resorts at various price points. Everything from couples only down to family friendly. And then you have uh, beautiful beaches. I mean, they're great. Then you have other places that offer these. You have some all inclusives in places like Barbados and Aruba. um, St. Martin, off in the Eastern Caribbean, but you're going to pay at least 50% more for your package to go to one of those destinations. Plus, you're going. It's a not as easy to get to. The flights aren't as frequent, and so you're going to spend longer time traveling. You're probably going to have one stop in Miami or Fort Lauderdale or somewhere coming or going. So those three destinations and the value. I actually, and this may surprise a lot of people to know this, but you can actually go there now.
Oh, really?
Cancun, Mexico is open. Punta Cana, the Dominican Republic is open. Um, and they have really no requirements. You don't have to have a pre-travel COVID test or anything. You can expect your temperature to be monitored while you're at the resort. They will uh, quite possibly take your temperature when you arrive at the airport there at your destination. But I have clients currently in Dominican Republic having a wonderful time, and the value is tremendous.
Oh, that's very interesting.
That
That's very
because
interesting.
and they're at about 30% occupancy. So you talk about social distancing.
Pretty much have the place to yourself.
Yeah, it's very, the beaches are pretty much deserted. Now there are some of the amenities are cut back. They don't have all of the restaurants are not open. It's just
Yeah.
not feasible to have everything running wide open when nobody is there to
Yeah, that's
appreciate
a
it.
very
But
good point.
food is still good. It's just going to be served at a couple of venues instead of 6 restaurants. You'll have 1 or 2. Um, but it's a great time to go. These destinations have qualified for the World Travel and Tourism Safety Seal for health protocols, and they have um, done these protocols. They have uh, the sanitation and health measures are second to none. And I've never had I've had several people travel now, and all of them say they felt perfectly safe. Didn't feel at all uh, that they had
They were concerned.
no concerns at all about health measures or um, anything like that. So
That's really interesting. That's really
yeah,
interesting.
and
Okay.
the values are really good. Depending on dates, holidays are going to be a different story, of course,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're always about 50% more. But avoid the holiday dates, and right now you can really get some great values to travel to the Caribbean. Costa Rica is open. That's another one, a great destination, fabulous destination there. And they have some all inclusives over on the West Coast there, and then they have fabulous resorts in the interior. So that's another place that you can visit and feel safe in doing that.
So that's so we have some options. Even though we can't get on a cruise ship, if
Yeah,
we want to enjoy a vacation, we have some options. So
you do
that's what it
have.
sounds
There
like.
are options.
All right. Our next question is, what destinations offer the best deals for someone that only enjoys the boat? And they're not really big into excursions, and they're not interested in the ports of call.
Well, there are a lot of, I think for people like that, a lot of the Eastern Caribbean itineraries are great for people who don't care about the ports of call so much, because typically you'll leave out of somewhere in Florida, and you've got a couple of days to get to your first port of call. It's just a distance thing. Those are usually going to be 7-day cruises
Right.
out of South Florida, and you'll have usually typically you'll have 3 sea days rather than 2 sea days that you would have on like a Western Caribbean itinerary. So for people who just want to stay on the ship, and my husband is content to do that. He really doesn't ever care if he gets off the ship or
Yeah.
not.
I thought that was pretty interesting because when your husband came on one of our trips and, we were off doing our thing and having a great time. And he's like, nah, I'll just stay here on the boat, and enjoy the boat. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yep,
That's
and
interesting.
he's content to do that. Sometimes I'll drag him on, but he really doesn't care about I'm all about the excursion and getting out and exploring, but
Yeah, me too. Me
he
too.
doesn't really care, and he just loves being on the ship.
Okay. Oh, what if somebody is really adventurous, and you've mentioned 3-star and 5-star locations? What if somebody was really adventurous and wanted to try out a 1-star location? Where would you suggest?
Oh gosh, well, I would probably send them to Cancun. I would probably, but man, I've never booked with a client like that. Uh, the
What would somebody expect on a 1-star compared to a 3-star or a 4-star?
Oh, the same Motel 6, was that?
Okay.
Would that do it for him? Most of the all-inclusive, if you're going all-inclusive, most of those are gonna be 3-star at minimum. So,
Okay.
uh, when you talked about adventurous, I was thinking things like zip lining and rock climbing.
uh yeah, there are people that aren't necessarily as concerned about their accommodations as they are the stuff that they're going to do when they rent their car or they rent a motorcycle and go out and do stuff. So a lot of times the 4-star and the 3-star locations really don't appeal to them.
Yeah.
And I'll give an example. Like one of the trips when I was I took a trip to Hawaii, as a group. We took a bunch of people to Hawaii one year, and I stayed for an extra day because I wanted to kind of do some stuff by myself that I wanted to do that wasn't included in the trip. And I stayed in what could only be described as a concrete Motel 6. The walls were, made of
Cement block.
cement blocks. Yeah, and it was, just a bed and no television, it was a decent bathroom. But you know what? I got a good night's sleep. I got up early in the morning, jumped in the rental car, and went and did what I needed to do. And there are a few of us who are like that. That if I'm with my wife, I'm gonna make sure that she's somewhere where she's comfortable. If I'm with myself, I mean, if it's safe and there's running hot water, I'm usually okay with just about anything else. So that's why I asked that question.
Yeah, we can book on things like that. When you're booking an all-inclusive, I mean, you want to consider what kind of food you're going to get and things like that. So that's a little different experience. But there are some adventure tour companies that stay at they're not all about the accommodations. It's more experiential, doing things. There's one particular Kontiki that is geared to the younger traveler, the more adventurous traveler, that 18 to 40 age group, and uh, they know they more hostile type
Right. Yeah,
accommodations,
exactly.
things like that,
Exactly.
and so there are products out there for that kind of traveler that I would feel reasonably comfortable in booking, because they specialize in that. And I know that safety, cleanliness, and health concerns are not going to be a problem. So, I would be comfortable booking somebody on something like that, rather than a 1-star all-inclusive resort that got terrible.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
there are things we can do for people who like that, who are wanting to do more budget-friendly adventure type travel.
Okay. That sounds good. Yeah, I should have also mentioned no roaches. It's got to be a clean place.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be, the most beautiful bed linen, but it does need to be clean.
Yes.
So, okay. So,
Clean and safe are you know, gotta factor those in.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So, what's the best time to take an Alaskan cruise, and when should I book it?
I love Alaska. I
Yeah, it's
absolutely,
amazing.
it's
It's
an
amazing.
incredible, incredible destination. Everybody, even if you think you don't want to go to Alaska, you need to go to Alaska,
A
because it's
lot of
going to
people don't want to
surprise you.
go. They think it's too cold.
Yeah, my
So
husband was
that's
one of them.
Yeah.
He really, he does, rustic is not his thing. He doesn't like rustic. He's not, his idea of roughing it is like Motel 6 would not even be on it. It'd be Holiday Inn would be about as roughing as he wants to go. But he fell in love with Alaska. So
Yeah.
it is a destination you need to consider, even if you don't think you would like it.
Try it
Think
at
about
least
it.
once. Just
Yeah,
go at
go,
least one time.
just go. When you go, the best time to go to Alaska for a cruise, the season starts in mid-May and runs through mid-September, because these are cruise ships, not icebreakers. So
That's right.
so you've got a limited time there. And there are points to be made for any of those times. There's not a bad time to go. Your early season and late season are going to have your best pricing. So if you're wanting to go and get, and value is your thing, you are going to go early
While the
season.
kids are in school.
Yeah, while the kids are in school, you might have
Yeah.
fewer children on board. And part of that goes into choosing which cruise line you want, because some attract more families than others.
Right.
But early season, you might see more young wildlife, fawns and the bears just coming out of hibernation with their cubs and things. So you might see some of that. The flowers are blooming. Um, Mid-season, June, July, are going to be your warmest season. They're also going to be the more expensive times to go. So the peak season, you're always going to pay a bit more. So you can save several $100s by going early or late. And when you go into the mid-August to mid-September, that's one of the best times to see bears if they're high on your priority list, because the salmon runs are happening and in full force, and those bears are trying to get ready to hibernate. So they're really wanting to chow down on the salmon. As to when you should book Alaska early. It tends to book out early. So a year in advance is kind of typical. And when you go, I would just really encourage people who are considering Alaska, even if you have to put the trip off for an extra year, consider doing the cruise tour, do the tour portion, see the interior of Alaska as well. It is definitely that train ride from Anchorage up to
Yes.
Denali. See
Yes.
that wildlife. Denali is known for, you'll see, usually typically see moose and caribou, and if you're lucky, grizzly bears, maybe a wolf, Dall sheep. The wildlife, the you'll talk about that train trip for the rest of your life, I guarantee it. But the most popular is a 7-night round trip out of Seattle.
Right. That's
And
the one we took.
yeah, and that is that's kind of the staple, and you can't go wrong with that. But if you can eke out a few more days and a few more dollars, consider the tour, because it's definitely something. And if you've already done Alaska and done that 7-night cruise and you want to see the interior, there's some great options to do a cruise tour that spends more time on land, and then you pick up a shorter cruise uh, that comes out down out of Skagway. You spend more time Anchorage up to Denali and Fairbanks, and then drive down and come into Skagway through another rail trip, and then have a short abbreviated 4-night cruise.
Oh, wow. That sounds like fun.
So
That
so
definitely
that is
sounds
good
like
for
fun.
people who have done Alaska once but didn't do the interior. That's a great option for them.
Yes. For those.
Well, there are uh, there are excursion groups that you can book outside of the cruise line that are very reputable, and they guarantee that they will get you back in time. You will not miss the cruise ship, and if you do, they will handle anything that's required to get you back on the
Really, I
ship.
didn't
So
know anybody would do that. I thought it was either, I had no idea. I thought if you didn't go on the cruise ships excursions that, and if you got left, you just got left and you were on
Well,
your own.
the cruise ship won't necessarily wait for you, but the couple of companies that we book through for excursions take that on, but they've never missed a cruise departure yet. So we had one that came close one time, Joe, but
Okay.
but
Yeah.
we won't go there. But but yeah, there are companies that you can book. It's always safe to book through the cruise line, of course. And for right now, folks, we've got this travel bubble thing going on with the COVID. Until that's under control, really most of the cruise lines, you're going to be in a bubble, and you're going to need to book everything through the cruise line because they
That's
want to
true. That's
control
true.
exposure. They don't want people out wandering around where they could uh, put themselves in danger and
There were
then
other
infect
people.
other people on once
Yeah.
they get back to the ship. So they're really trying to do a very safe, controlled environment and still maintain the fun factor.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, our next question is, what about safety? Isn't it pretty crazy to even think about international travel right now? So you're talking about different places that we can go, either in, south of the US, or even in Europe. But how are we going to get there? I mean, it's pretty crazy to think about going anywhere right now, it seems
Well,
like.
it is. You would think it is. They actually did a Harvard study that because people worry about air travel in particular. And this study showed that the chances of, the way they have the ventilation on these aircraft, that even if you're sitting next to somebody who has something, the chances of you getting it, just because the way they have this ventilation going from up to down, and then it's all fresh air coming in. Um, they say it is really, the aircraft is very, very safe.
Plus, aren't they pretty much enforcing everybody to wear masks now? We
And
did another AMA.
you are required, everyone over 2 years old is required to be masked on the aircraft. So I personally, I would not hesitate to get on an aircraft and go to an all-inclusive resort, or one of these places that's open. I would leave in the morning. I wouldn't hesitate. We're scheduled to go on a cruise that I'm sure is going to be canceled. I haven't heard about it yet, but supposed to head out February 28th, but now they're shutting it. Everybody's just trickling along and shutting down, and looks like it's going to be March before things sail. But I think when the cruises sail, I don't think there's going to be any safer place on the planet than a cruise ship. When they launch these ships, they're going to have it nailed. They've got 74 different protocols that they have put together, that they are going to be in compliance with, from a health and safety standpoint. Everything from the procedures for when you're at the terminal, when you're embarking, to how dining is handled, how the entertainment is handled, the ventilation on the ships, the medical situation. It is A to Z.
I was really impressed to see. I followed the two people who were live, pretty much live blogging their experience on what was the princess ship that got stuck in Japan.
Oh yeah, I can't remember. Was it Caribbean Princess? I can't remember which of their vessels it was right now, but
Yeah, but so anyway, I read all of the stuff that they were talking about, and it was pretty amazing everything that Princess was doing to try to make their situation as bearable as possible. And it's just really in the cruise line's best interest to come out of this looking as rosy as possible, and providing the best opportunities as possible. And I think that that's also going to translate into how they handle anything related to um, health once everything starts up, because we already had a few issues with norovirus. We had one that came into Houston and had a bunch of people, but it was It was a large number of people, but it was a fraction of the people that was actually on the trip itself.
Yeah.
And even though it was a small fraction of the people, they've gone all out, and now there's hand sanitizers everywhere, there's wash stations everywhere. So I people have asked me, when this starts back up, are you going to go cruising again? Because they know my wife and my son, we go at least once or twice a year. And I'm like, yeah, the moment it's open, we're buying a ticket. It's just,
Yeah.
we've missed 1 year already. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The thing about the cruise ships is, Joe, that they have to report everything from a hangnail on up that happens on board their vessels. It's the reporting requirements. It's not that things happen more often on cruise ships.
Yeah.
It's that they have to report everything that happens. If it happens at a resort, at a buffet restaurant in your city,
Oh yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you know, so you got somebody with norovirus who goes through your Golden Corral. I just, it's the only buffet I can think of right now, and so then you have 12 people that come down with it later on, and it's just like, it's not a big deal
Right.
because nobody can trace it back. The fact that the people are on the ship, and the ship has to report everything. That's no other industry on the planet that's held to the kind of reporting requirements that the cruise industry is.
Okay. That's a very good point. Very
Yeah.
good point. What do you expect to see now? And has the CDC lifted the no sale order for the cruise industry that was in place? And it seems like, I heard about that one cruise that went out, and it was like a one and done situation where they went out, they cruised for a little while, then they turned around and came back. They didn't make any ports, but then there was somebody that was sick, and the news made a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
What's going on? Tell us,
Well,
give us the full scoop.
okay. Well, that was Sea Dream. It's
Right.
very small. It's not even hardly a line because they have 2 or 3 vessels. They're very small, and they basically were flaunting the rules. They were not requiring, once people were aboard, everybody was, no masks. The protocols were just being totally ignored. They weren't sailing from the
Really?
U.S. They were sailing from, I believe it was St. Martin, and they were just kind of it's more like a country club atmosphere on a very small vessel, more like a yacht than a ship actually. and
Okay.
and they were just basically fairly overconfident and weren't enforcing the kind of protocols that the cruise lines that sail from the US they're going to get this right. They cannot afford to not get it right. And yes, there's going to be something happen. It's inevitable that, yeah, there's going to be a case or two get on the ship. How they handle that is going to be, they're going to have these protocols in place. I call this, I have kind of my own pet name for the CDC, the Center to Discourage Cruising. Uh, they have such antipathy toward the cruise line that far predates this virus. They just give them such a hard time, beginning to end, and have for years and years and years. So they've lifted the no sale order, but they are now this is something that just I can't hardly believe. So we have no ships sailing from the U.S. At the time this happened, and it was going to be February. And they last week came out with this warning, raised the warning from level 3 to level 4 about advising people to take no cruises.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, how ridiculous, how absurd is that? Nobody in the U.S. can access a cruise ship. There's no ship sailing from the U.S. They cannot fly into Europe and pick up a ship.
But there
Where
are
they are.
ships in Europe that are cruising, though,
There are
correct?
ships that are cruising in Europe and have been sailing since June without incident, using these similar protocols that are proposed here in the U.S. So it's being done. It's being managed on large ships. And this is without incident. Some of the river cruise companies have done the same. They've been sailing very successfully in Europe all summer long. and it's gone fine.
So if they've lifted the no sail ban, then why aren't all the ships back in
Well,
port?
they have a conditional sail order in place now. And basically, the cruise lines have to jump through more hoops. They've got to do trial runs and prove that their protocols are going to work. And so this is all in the cruise line. I mean, the cruise lines really want to get this right. They do not want to have to fall on their face and have a major issue right on the bat. They're going to make sure that everything is working and that passengers are going to be safe and it is going to work the way they want it to work. So the cruise industry is going to be so careful to make sure that everything is safe for their crew, their passengers. And the CDC needs to get out of the way and let them prove themselves.
Yeah. And I thought it was really interesting when I was reading about these test cruises that they want the cruise lines to do. It's kind of like, because they want people that they want people on the ships while they're doing these test cruises. They can't charge for these test cruises. It's kind of like telling a restaurant, yeah, you can open up, but for the first month all the food is free.
Yeah, very similar. That's a good analogy. I
And
like that.
I'm reading this and I'm thinking, well, okay, as a cruiser and as somebody who is a little adventurous, I would go on a free cruise if it meant, that I was a test subject for a while. And I signed up for the one for the Royal Caribbean. Of course, I'm, 100,001 because I found out about it, after everybody else had jumped in. And I think Royal Caribbean's actually going to be getting people or using people from their, or inviting people from their,
The loyalty program.
loyalty program. Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, are we going to have this from other cruise lines as well? Or is Carnival and Princess,
All of them are going to have some kind of test cruise. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to take maybe employees. Each one may do something a little differently from the others, but yeah, they're going to have to do test cruises that don't generate any revenue. So the cruise lines have been basically at this point 9 months without generating any revenue and have had to refund millions and millions of dollars that they had back to them without adding any revenue from any source. So it's been very challenging. One of the things we haven't touched on that I think would be this would be a good place to plug in here is those couple of cruises as the ships were out and they had sick people on board. It wasn't the cruise line's fault that they had the people. It was that no port of call, and this includes the U.S. ports, would let them dock to
right.
remove those passengers.
And so then it just spread.
So they could, they were in a catch-22. Now
Yeah.
that has been resolved as part of the protocols. They have worked with the various ports of call and developed, because those ports have got to partner if they're going to take the revenue that the cruise lines bring to them.
Yeah.
They've got to come to their assistance in times of need as well if they've got a sick passenger. So that's one of the things that has definitely been addressed is that the ports of call are going to partner with them if they do need to get some people off if they have an issue.
Next question. How safe is it going to be to fly to my vacation or cruise departure point?
Yeah, I we kind of touched on this, but I think that the airlines, honestly, the people that I've talked to who've flown have had good experiences. Some of the airlines are still blocking middle seats. I think that would be wonderful. I know Delta is one that is. There are some that are not. I would be more comfortable with airlines. So if that's an issue for you, you might look at which ones are still blocking the middle seats to give more space between passengers. But that the studies have shown that disease is not spread on airlines. It's very safe. So based on
Honestly, honestly, Pat, if disease was spread on airlines, everybody in the planet would be, I mean, as much as everybody flies, we would have just rampant disease everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of people who travel a lot in line with their work. I mean, gee, Joe, I'm required to travel as part of my job. It's my service to my clients. I must be out there. So, uh,
Right,
but
right.
but I wouldn't hesitate to get on a flight if I needed to fly. Fortunately, I can drive to 5 ports very easily here in Florida. Don't need to.
Yeah. But if you're going to come with one of us, you're going to have to
Yeah,
make your way to
yeah,
either, what is it, Biloxi, New Orleans, or Galveston.
yeah, yeah. Have to, but I wouldn't hesitate.
Okay, so our next question is, uh, what are the favorite destinations that you have visited in your personal travel?
Okay, top three, very easy for me. I put Alaska on that list every time.
So you're not even going to think about it. You already
I
have the
don't. Oh, I don't.
list.
I don't have to think about this one.
Okay. Okay.
Um, top three for me. Alaska. It's absolutely one of my all-time favorite destinations. It is beautiful. It is. It takes your breath away. And if you like wildlife, if you like beautiful scenery, if you like wide open spaces, um, that's just it's an amazing destination, and you need to go. Um, Amazon River. That
Really?
that was unforgettable. It was I would have to pinch myself at times to remind me that I'm still on the same planet I left from. It was
Now,
it
what mode of transportation did you use for
we
that?
were on a
Was
small cruise ship.
okay.
It happened to be on one of the Princess small ships. They had three at the time. They're down to one, but we did Princess for that, and it was incredible. Highly recommend that. Where else are you going to fish for piranha and eat your catch right there on the so one of the excursions we were on, we actually did fish for piranha, and they had a little galley on that little vessel we were on for the excursion. They cooked it up right there on the spot.
Oh,
It
nice.
was wonderful.
That sounds
Um,
like fun.
yeah, just the unforgettable experiences, and so unique. And my other one was the Danube River cruise.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
that was just I just I mean the experience of that was just incredible. There's not a bad river cruise out there as far as that goes regarding destinations and providers, but I was blessed to be able to go with Tauk, which is one of the top of the line cruise ships, and they just the experiences. What a lovely way to see a country. Uh,
Your next question is, how many days should I plan for a trip to Hawaii?
10 to
So,
14.
yeah, it's not a short trip. I've been to Hawaii twice, and it was 8 days one time, 9 days the next, and it's definitely some trip that you want to spend some time.
Yeah, I mean, just getting there, getting home, and if you go, for most people, this is a one of those bucket list one time in your life trips for most people. And if you go, you want to do it right. At least you want to go to Oahu, see
Right,
Pearl Harbor and the war memorials, do a circle tour, see the cultural center, then get on to Maui, the Big Island, at least a couple of the other islands, because they're very different, as you know, Joe.
right, and go to places that aren't tourist places. There's plenty
Yeah.
of locations that will let you come and do a tour of the location. You just kind of have to Google around and find them. But it's so easy to get into that trap where you're in a bus and you're going from place to place to place. You go to 15 different places in a day. You spend 5 minutes there at a time. But the great thing about Hawaii, places like Hawaii, is you can rent a car. You can drive anywhere that you want to go, and you can go to the interesting beaches. It takes a little research, but yeah,
Yeah.
Hawaii is definitely a great place. I went one of the times I went, it was our 20th wedding anniversary.
Ah.
Yeah. Marty stayed here. I went to Hawaii. Um, then about 4 years later, it was Valentine's Day, and Marty stayed here, and I went to Hawaii. And both times it was photography trips, and
Oh
it
my
just so
word.
happened that the dates fell. So we did tours in Hawaii, but yeah, it's definitely a great place to go if you're a photographer, if you enjoy.
Is it beautiful, beautiful place to
Absolutely,
go.
Jen. Absolutely. Our next question is it true that Hawaii isn't allowing people into the state?
It is no longer true.
Okay.
They are allowing people. They do have they do want a negative COVID test. I think with Hawaii, it's 48 hours prior to your arrival. Now, I never can say that. Uh,
Kauai? Are you saying Kauai?
Kauai, that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. I can never make that come out right. They are opting out of this, so they are now, I think as of this week, requiring quarantine again. They're
Back to 14 days.
yeah. So they're opting out of that. So but you can go to Hawaii, and if you have your negative test, and I think you have a follow-up test with that. I'd have to refresh my memory on that because it's very fluid. As you know, these things tend to just kind of change one week to the next about requirements. But you can go to Hawaii now. It's actually not a bad time to go because there aren't any crowds. So you kind of could,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it's not necessarily a bad time to go if Hawaii's on your bucket list. Probably some pretty decent pricing to be found.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. So my tip for people that are either going to or coming from Hawaii, because you know that you can actually fly there pretty much nonstop from Houston now, or either one stop or two stops. But when I'm flying home from Hawaii, I fly home the very last flight of the day, which is usually around 9:30, 10 o'clock. So since it's an 8-hour flight, from 11 o'clock when the plane takes off and everything is going, from 11 o'clock until 5 a.m., I'm sleeping, and I sleep through the entire trip. um, so it's actually, it seems like an 8-hour flight is a long time, but it really isn't. It's not that bad. All right, next question. What are some of the best travel deals that you see these days? And when we say these days, I think that includes what's going on with COVID.
Yeah, I think, definitely you've got Cancun and Punta Cana. I would definitely put those top of the list. And if you're interested, you want to book a cruise for next summer, into to fall, even into 2022. Now is a great time to get some really good deals, great
Jump on
promotions
that.
out there.
Yeah.
So go ahead. And if you're worried about the cancellation and the various programs that they have out there, you're pretty much protected. Most of them, they allow you to cancel up to, depending on the cruise line, anywhere from a week to 48 hours prior to your departure. If you're feeling unsafe, most of them are allowing cancellations.
Yeah,
So
I'm not sure that the cancellations are nearly as far as the traveler canceling. I don't think that's nearly as much trouble or as much of a concern as it is the cruise canceling. What happens
yeah.
if the ship cancels on me?
Well, if the cruise is canceled, they're basically offering either a free refund or $125 future cruise credit to people. That's pretty much across the board with all of the major lines.
Wait, $125?
125%.
Oh, percent. Okay, I
Yeah.
got you.
So if you've got a $2,000 per person cruise, you'd get an extra 25%
Gotcha.
credit toward your booking your next cruise.
Well, that seems like that's kind of like short selling. It seems like that's a nice gamble right now.
It's not a bad deal. You're going to go. The one thing with some of those cruises, some of the lines will not let you use that credit toward your deposit. So that can be a little bit of it depends on the cruise line. That's not true of all of them. Some of them will, some of them won't. So sometimes you've got to pay a deposit again, but a lot of times there's promotions out there with reduced deposits. So maybe you can only deposit for $50 a person,
Yeah.
instead of $500 for your stateroom. So,
So are you booking like Cancun trips?
oh yeah, yeah,
So if it was okay, let's give two examples. So let's say uh 3-star hotel, 3-star all-inclusive resort for a couple. How much are we looking at if we were to say do it January or February?
Okay, right now, some of the dates I've looked at recently, if you did a 3.5 star all-inclusive resort for the package with your air, again, I have been booking people mostly out of Florida, but uh, anywhere of a ranged from for two people, we might find something $1,200, $1,400
Per
entry level.
person?
No, for package for two people.
Really? And
Yeah,
how many days is that?
for 5 to 7 days, you know.
So you're saying $1,200 for two people, including air,
Yeah. It
that
depends.
for 7 days.
It depends on the dates, and but I have seen really really good deals. A couple that I have in Punta Cana right now, they're at a really nice 4-star all inclusive, kind of an upscale. 7 nights was about $2,400 for the two of them, with their round trip nonstop air and transfers and 7 night stay at a really nice resort. So
Okay, so let's take that to the next level. So we're talking 3.5 stars. What if we're talking like full 5-star Michelin food, the whole works? How much are we talking?
let's say $3,000 range.
That's
uh
unbelievable.
for some,
That's
yeah, for say Cancun areas. And there again, a lot of it depends on dates and
right.
flexibility. Holidays, figure to add 50 to 100% double on it,
Yeah,
because
that's always the
that's just
case.
holiday travel. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, some of the best deals that you can imagine. I actually almost thought about taking myself to Cancun or Punta Cana just to have some pictures to post for people,
There you go.
to show me traveling.
That's a great
Just
idea.
and I looked at this, at a really nice resort. It was going to run me about $800 for a solo traveler for
Don't travel solo. Here's what you do. Let me know when and where. You, me, and Marty will go.
okay,
We'll get with
we'll get
Marty,
that
find out what,
triple.
yeah, we'll find out what her, actually, we could even bring Alex because he can do school on Zoom. And how funny would that be for him to be doing school on Zoom with a beach in the background? I don't know what the internet service is like.
Most it depends a little bit, but all of the resorts have Wi-Fi. You might have to go to the lobby, depending on the resort. Some of
Yeah.
them are pretty iffy in the rooms, but all of them have Wi-Fi. So
All right.
He'd be able to do it from somewhere. And as you know, I always have my computer. I work on cruise ships all the
Right.
time.
All right. For our next question, with everything pretty much available for booking online these days, why do I need a travel agent? What's the benefit when I can just Google, best price on a cruise and start clicking buttons?
Basically, our value proposition is, I say I'm going to save people time, money, and mistakes. Those are the
Yeah.
three things. Um, First of all, time is a commodity. And you can spend 30 hours. I can talk to you for 15 minutes and pretty much know which direction I went ahead, what's going to be a good fit. So we know our products. We know which resorts to send people to and which ones to avoid and run like the wind to keep from booking anybody there. Um, and we often have, we're able to do these bundled packages. You might not be able to put together a package as well priced as I am, just because we have the ability to bundle all of these things together make a nice seamless package.
Right. Right.
And it's more of a question of why would you not use a travel agent? People who, particularly this day and age, because if something happens, you get often there's a problem. We've got your back.
And that's definitely the case. You've really I mean, even when we were on cruises that you didn't come with us on, when we had issues, I mean, you were right there on it. You got, made the phone calls and got us fixed up. I know one time we were on a group cruise, and the boat, we were going to go on an excursion. And for whatever reason, the boat that was going to take the excursion, I don't know if it sank or if it wasn't working or if there was some issue, but
Yeah, had an
you know,
engine problem.
engine problem. They were going to cancel it, but you got on the phone. You made it happen. So we still ended up getting to go on our excursion. We just made a couple minor scheduling adjustments, and if it wasn't for you, at home, taking care of business, it would have been a port that we had gone to and maybe still had a good time. We just wouldn't have done what we wanted to do.
Right.
And
And what
so,
I mean, when we had included that package, we would have had to refund everybody and get that back. So, yeah, that's another thing. We have these relationships with these providers. So we can uh, call, like when I book one of these resorts, I book through a certain provider, and they book thousands of rooms with these resorts each year. And so if you're having trouble and say, I don't like this, you've got to fix this, they just say shrug and smile and
yeah,
but if I call FunJet, who books thousands of rooms with these resorts, and they call them, they're
oh,
going to
then
fix
it's a big
that
deal.
problem.
Yeah,
Then
then it's a big deal.
then they're going to address that issue. So we have clout,
Right, right.
just based on our relationships, and I might not have the clout personally, but I know who does. So
That's
so
right.
we it's all of those. My question more is, really, all for the most part, we travel agents, we aren't charging fees uh, for clients. And when people use a travel agent, aside from everything else, they're supporting small business. So my question more would be more like, if you're going to get the same product at the same or better pricing and support a small business in the process, why would you not
Yeah.
use a travel advisor?
How, for those who are uneducated, or for those that don't know, just for those that don't know, if you're my travel agent and you're helping me set up a cruise or a group cruise or whatever, if I'm not paying you, then and I hate to ask this because I don't want to ask anybody how they make money, but I mean, it's an honest question. People say, well, I don't need a travel agent anymore. I can do it myself and I don't have to pay the extra fees. Well, if there's no extra fees going through a travel agent, then how does it work out for the
We're
travel
paid
agent?
commissions by the provider for bringing our customers and using them.
So the
They,
money doesn't come from the customer, it comes
it
from
come, and
the
you're not
providers.
paying any more. You would book this same product at the same price, whether or not you book through an agent. So
Okay.
you're not getting any extra charges. Now, that said, Joe, I think you're going to see more and more agents doing a modest booking fee with clients these days. And the reason, for one of the big reasons, is just economic survival right now. Because if I book a cruise for my clients, say Paul and Rhonda, I book them on a cruise for next December. That doesn't generate any revenue for me until
Until
December,
December.
until they
Yeah.
travel.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of agents are kind of reluctantly looking at doing a modest fee, because actually we're not, we're not taking any fees from the clients. The service on your end is free. Uh, probably not on simple things like booking a Carnival cruise or something like that, but more on the like itineraries for Europe and things like that, where we're putting a time investment in. I think more agents are going to be doing a modest fee of some sort at the beginning, just as a matter of economic survival.
Yeah.
So I think that's a trend that I'm seeing in the industry so far. I have mostly resisted that I have almost never charged a fee, but the time for some times in the coming future, I think that you're going to see more agents that when they've got a time investment on something like that, um, not necessarily on things like the uh, all-inclusive resorts and cruise bookings, but on other things that are more of a time investment. I think there'll be some fees added in.
Kidding. Okay. All right. For our next question, do I really need travel insurance, and in what situations do I need it or not need it?
Okay, do you really need travel insurance? Anytime you leave the shores of the USA, yes, you need travel insurance.
So help us all understand exactly what's covered in that travel insurance.
Well, it depends on the policy. There's different levels, but for the most part, our most popular insurance is going to cover for cancellations for covered reasons. If somebody is sick, if they have an illness in the family, a major illness, say you have a parent who has a stroke and you're unable to travel, you have a fire at your home, some kind of your employer is not able to let you work, he needs you to be there, some emergency has come up. So for some reason that's covered, you're not able to travel, it covers you for cancellation. That's one of the main things. But also, if you become ill or injured, if you have,
You
you
mean on the
fall
trip?
on the trip,
On the trip.
as it covers you usually from the time you depart. Uh, you step aboard the aircraft. So you become ill, you have an accident. Things happen just like when you travel, just like real life.
Yeah.
People get sick. And so it would have medical insurance, things like trip interruption, lost luggage. There's some coverages for that. And there's insurance that covers you for cancel any reason. You can step up your coverage, but typically 25 to $50,000 in medical coverage. Emergency evacuation, say there's um, a volcano is erupting and they have to evacuate, something happens. So if you should, if you should suffer a demise, somebody in your travel party dies, repatriation back to the US.
Yikes. And
We
unfortunately, I've seen videos, I've seen YouTube videos discussing this exact situation, that there are people who die on cruise ships,
yeah,
and there are specialized areas where they keep those
yeah,
people, and then but they still have to be brought back to,
yeah.
yeah, it's
So
because
so
people
those
have
things,
heart attacks,
yeah,
people slip and fall, um,
things happen.
things
Just
happen.
it's just and your insurance once you leave the shores of the US is not any good for the most part.
You mean
Uh,
your health
your
insurance?
health insurance isn't going to cover you in Ecuador.
Yeah.
So some countries are now requiring it, and Ecuador, mentioning that, Ecuador is one of those. For a Galapagos trip that we did for another photographer a year or two ago, insurance was required. They had to show an insurance certificate.
Wow.
The country
Wow.
requires it because they've had too many times that they got stuck holding a bill for somebody.
Who got
So
back on the cruise and never
got
came
back,
back to pay.
off they went. So, but you do definitely, and we include that as a matter of course.
How much extra does it include to my
Well,
trip?
it factors in, it depends on how we buy it. If it's don't usually like to buy it like through the cruise line or through the travel provider, although we do that sometimes just because it's less expensive. Typically, the coverage isn't quite as broad as if we go to a third party provider like Chubb or Travel Guard or somebody. Uh, but a good ballpark figure is 10% of the cost of your trip. The younger you are, and it's the cheaper it's going to be because you've got fewer health
Yeah.
issues. It's less likely that you're going to suffer a heart attack if you're 35 than if you're 75. So
Right.
so
Right.
a lot of them factor in age as a component that they factor into the equation for a lot of them. But you need travel insurance. Just consider it part of the cost of your trip. Nobody wants you don't want to use your homeowner's insurance. You purchase it because know you want to cover those eventualities if something happens.
Right. Right. For our next question, Joe said that you wrote a book about how to get a free cruise. Is it really possible to cruise for free?
Yes, it actually is free or close to free. Um, the cruise lines, it's all about groups. So if you've got friends, put together a group. It only takes in most cruise lines just 8 staterooms. Call your cousin, call your sister, get your neighbor, uh, you know, get a group together. Typically, a cruise line is going to give one tour conductor credit, which is a base fare, uh, per every eight staterooms. So one person is going to get their base fare free, just pay taxes and fees and gratuities and things.
And it can be anything. It can be your church group. It can be your, for us, it's a photography club. It can be, your chess club. It can be any
It
kind
could
of
be
club.
anything. It can be collectors, motorcycle groups, Harley riders. They can take their bikes and
I
bring
saw that.
them out.
We actually came out. We were going to go out on an excursion, and they opened up the side of the boat, and just this flood of motorcyclists came out
Yep.
on their bikes, and it was actually a pretty interesting sight.
Yep. So pretty much anything that you can do on land. I mean, quilters have been known to take their quilting and take all of their machines and they'll set up a space for them. So there's all kinds of things. Pretty much I tell people, I laugh and say if it doesn't involve ponies or fireworks, I can pretty much make it happen for you on a ship.
Yeah,
So
that and drones. We can't take our drones on the
can't
ship.
take your drones on the ship. For more reasons than I can even possibly begin
Oh,
to.
I'm so frustrated with that because I want to bring my drone with me on my vacation, and I don't think that's something I should be you know, forbidden to do. But
Yeah, yeah,
everybody,
no, Joe, it's the rules. They always get in the way. But yeah, you know, uh, so yeah, and if you're a group leader, say you want to do a seminar at sea, you have a following, and you're a real estate investor, and you want to take your high-end investors group and go to Grand Cayman and talk to some of the bankers there, or whatever you want to do. We can build in event fees of anywhere from $100 a person to $2,000 a person, whatever you need. So we can do those kinds of things to where you can generate revenue for yourself or an organization. Just kind of part of what we do. Each one is customized according to what the needs of that particular group, whether it's just a friends and family group or if it's a, a big regular seminar at sea with multiple speakers and breakout rooms and whatever is needed. Uh, you know, we customize it to meet the needs of the group.
I've never cruised before. Is it kid safe and kid friendly? What age is appropriate? And how do staterooms work if you have 3 kids? That's one of the, luckily we only have one child. So when we cruise, there's either that pull out couch or that thing up at the roof that drops
Yeah,
down. But if somebody has a family of 5 people, what are your suggestions?
well, there are actually several suggestions or several things. Carnival has a number of staterooms on many of its ships that will accommodate 5 people. Royal Caribbean doesn't publicize this as much, but they have some really wonderful family-friendly rooms. You have to dig a little bit to find them. They don't usually just pop up. You have to kind of ask about them. Call your travel advisor. We know about them. They book quickly. So when you've got uh, the more people in your family, the earlier you want to book. This is a rule of thumb because those rooms that accommodate 3 and more people are the first ones to fill up. And a lot of times people want to book late and they've got a family of 4. I could get 2 staterooms for 2 people, but they want
Yeah.
everybody in one room. You need to book those. And adjoining rooms is another way we frequently can do this. You can do adjoining rooms. There are staterooms. Disney has a number of staterooms that accommodate 5 people. So that is an option, and the adjoining rooms is another one. Frequently, we can book the adjoining rooms. If we actually have some blocked space, we can get those at a cheaper rate than booking one room that accommodates 5. So
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting.
that sometimes that turns out to be the case.
And worst case, I guess people would be able to rent 2 rooms that were next to each other, even if there wasn't the shared door.
Right, right. It a little bit of that is the age of the kids, obviously the younger, but and a lot of times we have to do smoke and mirrors and book the one adult is occupying one room, and
Right, right.
the other one, but I don't know that any of them actually do checks at night to see who's sleeping in which room. So it's pretty much it works out okay. So
Well, as somebody who has a son, and my son has a form of autism, we were very concerned about bringing him with us on cruises because we weren't sure how he was going to react or whether or not it would be safe. But it was literally one of the most safe environments that he could be in. When he went, he was very independent, where normally he wasn't. He went and spent time in the children's lounge and then later the teens lounge. Um, he made friends, people that he texted with long after we got home. And when he came home with a much stronger sense of self and independence, which we were really, really thrilled to see. So we just set some boundaries. We just said, because I know a lot of people, they'll take their kids and it's like, okay, as long as you're back, as long as you don't fall overboard, do whatever you want. But we set some boundaries. You must be home by a certain time. And I think we said it was like 11 o'clock at first and then 12 midnight when he got older. And he had to eat meals with the family every single time. So with those, that way we could kind of keep in contact with him and make sure that we knew what was going on. Also, Princess had a system where there were these phones that we could use, and mom and dad would carry the phone, and if we needed to call like the children's club or the teens club or what have you, or if Alex was anywhere on the ship and he had gotten lost, he could just pick up any phone in the ship and he could dial that number and get in contact with us. And I think Carnival has something very similar, but I think it's more of a radio walkie-talkie kind of situation. But anyway, long story short, if when some people ask, well, is it safe for kids? It's absolutely safe for kids. And we he loves going. He was extremely disappointed that we weren't able to go on our normally scheduled trip this year. And he's tried to talk his way into maybe getting out of school so he could go, once everything starts up again. But yeah, there's definitely ways to work things so that you can bring the kids along
yeah, it's
on the
it's
cruise.
probably the most family friendly vacation. You have, as you were pointing out, you can have together time, have dinner together each night, and then everybody, you might want to go off and do photography during the day, and Alex wants to do a special excursion with the young people, and Marty maybe just wants to have a spa day, and so
Yeah,
everybody can do the thing,
exactly.
come together at dinner time, and so it's a wonderful family friendly vacation. The adults
Yeah,
can have adult time, the kids can engage in fun activities that are age appropriate. So
right, right.
it's a fabulous vacation for
Yeah,
family.
one of the best parts of it is the fact that he could eat whatever he wanted, and I didn't have to pay for seconds. If he wanted that second hamburger, I didn't. When you're on vacation and your kid's hungry and he's asking for a hamburger, like some of the places you go for a hamburger when you're at a resort or on vacation, it's a little bitty hamburger, and he'll want another. It's like, no, go ahead, go get it. You know where it's
Yeah,
at.
go for it.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
for it.
And that's value on a vacation on a cruise is just tremendous. When you compare it with all that's included, it's not all inclusive. When we all know that it's not all inclusive, but
No.
it is very inclusive, and with meals and some beverages and all the entertainment and activities that are just part of the experience.
Right,
It's a
right.
wonderful value.
Yeah, it really is. And for a kid that gets bored really easy if he doesn't have his telephone, uh, he stayed busy and had plenty to do the entire 7 days. He didn't enjoy a couple of the tours we went on were on like one of them was a bus ride, and we kind of just drove around. He didn't enjoy driving around. He wanted to be out walking around doing something. He told me he would have rather just stayed at the boat. Um, but yeah, it's been a great experience for him. I've never cruised before, and I'm single. Do I have options? Are there any single occupancy stateroom options? Now, for those of you guys that are my age or older who remember Love Boat, where if there was a single person who was traveling on Love Boat, it would be they'd put two people in a room that were complete strangers, and they'd both have a key. And I just remember watching one episode where this lady just walked in and she goes, "Oh, hi, you must be my roommate for the next 7 days." It's like, that's a complete stranger. You're sleeping in the same room with a complete stranger. But so nowadays, it's not like that anymore, because I know the whole security thing that aspect of it is completely different now. So what is an option for somebody who's traveling single now?
Okay. There are a lot of options. Cruise line, people have talked, cruise lines have listened. So there are a number of ships now that offer single occupancy that are designed for the solo traveler. And so those are options. Norwegian was the first one to come out with that. Several of the cruise lines have followed suit. A lot of the luxury lines also waive the single supplement. River
Oh,
cruise,
wow.
yeah,
That's a huge savings.
it is a huge savings. Um, so like some of them set aside river cruises. Most of the river cruise lines set aside some rooms for solo travelers and don't have any single supplement. Book early there again; they'll sell out quickly. But yes, there are options these days for the solo traveler, and
So is it the same room, but there's just less people in it, or do these rooms look different for a solo traveler?
well, they are different, and some of it, here again, it kind of depends on the ship and the cruise line. But like Norwegian on some of their bigger ships, they have these special rooms. The studio is what it's called, the
Oh, okay.
studio
Okay.
rooms, and they're smaller. They're interior rooms, but they have a window, a one-way window that you can, so you do have a window that looks out in the hallway. They have a living room where people can gather and mingle and get acquainted. So you can make friends to hang with. They've usually got some, a continental breakfast that they'll put out in there, or possibly cocktails in the evening, a glass of wine or something. But Norwegian was kind of that. Princess has come along with some accommodations. Some of the cruise lines like Cunard has always accommodated the single ladies, have also always had opportunities to travel with them. But some of the rooms you would have a standard stateroom with a balcony. It's there again, it's by ship and cruise line by cruise line. We just need to explore options. But yes, they're out there, and you do have more options now than ever before.
That's for our next question, I see theme cruise ads on Facebook, like political cruises, professional development, LGBT, nudist, Star Trek, Turner Classic Movie cruises, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Are these worth it? Are they overrated? What are your opinions on theme
Well,
cruises?
theme cruises, if you're into whatever it is they're selling. If you're, if you're a political progressive or conservative and that's your thing, and they've got gonna have 6 of these, your governor and
Or
whoever,
just well-known bloggers
just
or
well-known
whatever.
people,
Yeah.
whoever. If that's your thing, and you're almost always going to pay a little more. And
Yeah, that's
sometimes,
definitely seems to be
yeah,
the case.
sometimes you're going to pay significantly more. So it's all into how much is it worth to you? Is the value add worth what they're charging? So uh, I I think that in most cases, the value add, if it's something that appeals to you, like if it's a photography cruise, um, and there's going to be a value add that makes that attractive to you. I know you people are passionate about what you do, and
To a
most are
fault.
yeah, to a fault, and most are willing to pay premium to get that, something geared to their interest. And whatever the special interest is, chances are there is a cruise out there for you. And it's a trade-off because you probably are going to spend somewhat more to significantly more. If people bring on, if they're going to have a half a dozen speakers, if they're going to have an educational component, something like that, all of that comes at a price. They've got to compensate these people for their time, or at least give them a free cruise.
Right, right.
Sometimes they have to pay people to for their time on board, and sometimes they'll just offer them. They're happy to take just the opportunity to cruise for free. So it's as varied as there are situations. So
Well, I know with the Star Trek cruises, just as an example, the Star Trek cruises, they're no different than the Star Trek event, in that the people that appear there are usually people that are paid to be there. They don't, you don't have people show up out of the kindness of their heart. If
right.
they're going to fly from one side of the country to another just to be at your convention, there has to be something in it there for them, and it's going to be the same way for a cruise.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and when you consider the value that a cruise offers inherently, you're going to take advantage of all that comes with that cruise anyway.
right,
You're
right.
still going to have all of the other entertainment and
And
amenities
food.
and food, and so you're going to have all of that. Plus, you're going to have your special interests. So I think personally, in most cases, if it's something you're passionate about, the value's there.
But thank you very much for telling us, giving us some insider information, letting us know about stuff that, we otherwise we're not going to know about unless we hear it from a professional. Because right now, a lot of what we're hearing is only on the news, and we're only hearing the bad stuff on the news. So luckily we
Yeah.
have professionals like you. And so again, thank you very much, Pat. I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate you spending time with us tonight.
Always a pleasure, Joe. Nobody I'd rather spend a couple hours with. This
Oh,
was fun.
yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
So
All
is
right,
there
Pat, thank you. Have a wonderful night, and thank you very much for spending time with us, and thank you for answering all of our little AMA questions.
Okay, my pleasure. Thanks again.
Have a good night.